Well, hello. It's my podcast. It's me, Jaymz Bee. Friday the 13th, but it's a lucky day for us. Jane Bunnett is going to be in about 5 minutes to talk about her career, her multi-award-winning career. My God, she's got a lot of awards. And what a great storyteller and an old friend. So Jane Bunnett is coming in just a moment. Right now, a quick bunch of listings, because if you want to go out on the town, this is a good week to do it. Tonight at the Old Mill Inn, Vern Dorge is performing. He's a fantastic sax player. He does a version of the song Sidewinder. It's so groovy. You gotta go see him tonight at Old Mill Inn, Homesmith Bar. And tomorrow night, Brian Blaine is there, the blues master. He's got an interesting band with him. Patrick Murner on bass, Michelle Joseph on drums, and Ken Whiteley on piano, mandolin, and guitar. Should be a cool night. If you love the blues, check out Homesmith Bar. It's a classy joint for blues, that's for sure. John McMurtry is there on Wednesday and Bob DeAngelis on Thursday. It's always 7:30 to 10:30. There's never a cover, $20 minimum, and that's it. oldmilltoronto.com for all of that. Hughes Room Live. Tonight, it's a Stax record tribute, and Lance Anderson, the great keyboard player, puts together a stellar lineup. Singers, musicians, everybody top shelf playing the music of Stax records. And also coming up Saturday, Ron Negrini's farewell performance. Not sure what that means. I hope his health's okay. Maybe he's retiring. I don't understand. But anyway, whatever that means, he's fantastic. Think James Taylor, Keith Carradine, Harry Chapin, that kind of storytelling song and just a sincere voice. Beautiful guy. So that's happening on Saturday. And Martha Chavez is doing a comedy brunch on Sunday. There's lots of cool things to check out at hughesroomlive.com. Okay, Jazz Bistro. Joaquin Nunez Hidalgo, he's performing over there. There we go, just moving my screen around. Nick McLean on piano, Brown Man Ali on drums, Paco Luviano, I can say his name, he's a great bass player from Mexico. They're all playing, so it's like Mexico, Trinidad, Canada, and Cuba, all in one band. jazzbistro.ca. What else? Oh, Sunday, Addie Braun is doing a show called Everyone Prefers Blondes. Addie Braun is a cabaret singer with a killer band. She'll be doing the songs of Doris Day and Rosemary Clooney. And let's see who she's got on that band this time. Tom King on piano, Pat Collins on bass, Daniel Barnes on drums, and Tony Quarrington on guitar. So I like brunettes and redheads too. Kind of, I like everybody. But blondes, well, Rosemary Clooney, Doris Day, you can't go wrong with their material. I should also mention that two great musicians take the stage on September 18th. They're both violin players. Moshe Hammer and Sam Murata. That is really cool. The showtime there is a little earlier. It's usually 8:30. It's 8 o'clock on September 18th for two great violin players. And Thursday, the 19th, it's Cuban trumpeter Alexander Brown. He plays there, I think, almost every month. He's such a great musician. I'm sure you're going to love Alexander Brown. You're going to love everything over there. jazzbistro.ca. Moving over to Lula Lounge, Havana Club Friday, kicks off with Roberta Hunt Trio, doing some New Orleans music in front of the curtain while you have dinner, 6:30, 7 o'clock. Then the curtain opens and there's a great big band playing and there's a DJ and it's happening all night long. Sharangon del Norte and DJ Suave are performing. Now, Saturday, it's the Salsa Saturday, Ricky Franco and the P Crew Orchestra. They go every couple of months there. And there's a book launch, a speaker series, a pop concert. It's always a good idea to surf over at lula.ca and be sure to go for dinner as well as a show. Okay, couple of festivals, kensingtonjazz.com. So many bands performing this coming weekend, in fact starting tonight. So much going on there. I can't mention like 3 names without mentioning 100 names. So check out their website. You can't buy tickets in advance. I'm saying just go down and walk around Kensington Market all weekend and you will see so many bands it'll make your head spin. I'll be at the outdoor stage with Maqueque and John McLeod's Rex Hotel Orchestra and Lighthouse. And I promised I wasn't going to start saying names, and I've just started. Oops. Anyway, so many bands there, you won't believe it. And Brantford Jazz Festival. If you want to drive over to Brantford Saturday and Sunday, it's a free show. And I'll be there Sunday to check out John Finley and Avery Raquel. Okay, so A quick thank you, Barbarian Steakhouse, not just a great place to take one friend, a great place to rent out and make a party of it. I had a birthday in that multi-million-dollar wine cellar. It was such a classy dinner. I was just there last week for a party for the Toronto International Film Festival, a Bill Marshall tribute. So it's a great place. If you want to spend some money and impress some people, great place to throw a party. 7 Elm Street, Barbarian's Steakhouse. Captain Paul Barber at barberfinancial.com is a man I need to thank because he has supported this from the beginning, and he is a clever cookie. You got some financial needs, you want to ask some questions, go to Captain Paul. And finally, thank you to you if you have supported me on Patreon. A bunch of people came on board lately. I don't know if I said something right or I don't know what happened, but thank you to everyone. Whether you do a one-time donation or $5 a month, every bit helps, and I thank you so much for that. All right, are you ready? When I try to talk about Jane Bunnett, it's so hard to even begin to say how much I love this woman and what she's done for music in Canada, and her love of Slim Gaillard. If you don't know some of the names, Dewey Redman, Slim Gaillard, some of the stories she's telling, write them down and go search them after this interview because she's got crazy stories and these are very famous jazz people. All right, we're going to go there right now. Oh, wait. There we go. Here comes Jane. Hello.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you got up early in the morning to say hello to me.
You did.
I have been a super fan of yours from before I even met you, and that was because I met you a long time ago, and I was a fan even before that. Your first record, when you got into the studio to make your first record, did you know what direction you were taking, or did you find it as you went?
Well, I'm not sure which record you're speaking about.
1988 was the year.
So that was called In Due Time.
That's it.
And we were very clear when Larry and I were planning that record. We wanted to make our debut record with a real splash. You know, we wanted to make a statement, and one of the ways that we felt doing that was to possibly get a couple of legendary, or I would not so much say legendary, but heroes of ours that were inspirations for us to be heading in that direction on the recordings. And so that was the plan. Let's see if we could get Dewey Redman on our record. And then if we can't get Dewey Redman, let's see if we can get Don Pullen. I can't remember. There wasn't one that was more important than the other.
You did Don Pullen on the second record.
On the first record, we had Don Pullen and Dewey Redman.
Oh, I see. And second was just Don Pullen, yeah.
Yes, and so the first one, this was a dream record. It was like Don Pullen was in Toronto, and he was doing a solo concert for the Jazz Festival at Café des Copains. Lothar's
right, which
bar
is now called the Reservoir Lounge,
is
but
it?
way
Is
back
it?
then,
Okay.
yeah.
And anyhow, I was a huge fan of his, and I had been introduced to some of Don's records, but I'd known about Don Pullen through Charles Mingus's. He was in Charles Mingus's legendary quintet, and I'd seen them many times, and so I was very bold, and on the break went and introduced myself, and I think I had my little cassette that I'd made of our band and a couple of sheets of music, and I gave that to him, and I asked if he'd ever guest on the record, and he said, well, let me think about it. And from about then on, it was about 6 months of dogging him, and a few times I was in New York, and I called, left messages, and finally he picked up the phone one of the times and said, wow, you are so persistent. And I was like, yes, I know. And he ended up saying yes. Around the same time, I had Dewey Redman was playing that summer with Charlie Hayden at the Du Maurier Theatre, which was then called the Ice House. And same deal. It was right after the show. I ran down to the dressing room before anybody got there because I knew there'd be lots of people wanting to talk to him. And introduced myself, same deal. I handed him my little cassette and a couple of pieces of music and said, would he ever consider playing on my first recording, my first LP, vinyl? And he said, yeah, you think about it, let me hear, if that music will suit what I do? I said, oh, it was so well, And he ended up saying yes, so it was beyond my dreams that I would have both of them on the recording. So the title of that recording was called In Due Time, which was a tune written by Larry in dedication, sort of a double entendre on the In Due Time, dedicated to Dewey Redman. And Claude Roger was in the band, so I had been playing with Claude, and...
Now, he was mostly in Montreal, wasn't he?
At this point, he was here. He was living in Toronto. He was living out around this part in the East End, Beaches area. And so I was doing some sessioning with Claude, and Brian Dickinson was on it, and I think it was Scott Alexander.
Wow, what a
and Larry,
band.
of course. And that was, for me, it was a very, very exciting time because it was, we put, these very high-level musicians on our recording, and it made us, really stretch our skills and play, to have to play, try to play up to that level. And I think it also, one of the most important things about that first recording was that it's, because of the musicians, because we had chosen Dewey Redman and Don Pullen, they being advancing the music, in that particular field, I guess they were considered avant-garde musicians, modern, more, they weren't like trad musicians. It gave people that were hearing our music for the first time a context. So, they gave them a reference of the direction that we were leaning towards. So that was a very good thing for us to do because it opened a lot of doors.
Right, and then 18 albums later, you're putting out a Maqueque record.
There's been a lot, when I think of the journey, and that's for me, when I go back and I really look back at my history, I go, wow, it's been amazing because I have enjoyed so much of it, I've played with, Don Pullen and Stanley Cowell, and I played with a lot of different musicians and made a lot of different style music. I played with Brazilians and, recorded with Brazilian musicians and Cuban musicians and avant-garde musicians and Slim Gaillard, who's like, crazy. Like
we have to get to a story about Slim Gaillard.
I mean,
oh my God.
What do we say about Slim? So
you were really close to Slim. You guys were like kindred spirits.
He was, for us, he was like every day when he lived with us, it was like when we woke up, every day was magic. Like, what are we going to do today? And there was always going to be something crazy and fun and interesting. We just never, if it meant going into Chinatown and buying a whole bunch of food that Slim was going to come back and at that time I was vegetarian and I was like, holy shit, I'm not going to eat that. It looked like Beverly Hillbillies knucklehead soup. It was like, what? But anyhow, and he would always cook, as if it was only for like three of us, he would cook for like 20. So, I would have him, he'd be at our house for like 3 weeks and then he'd go back to England or he'd go off somewhere to Europe, somewhere. He was very mysterious, and he said, leave this food, don't throw this food out, so put it in the containers. So I would pack them all, ice cream containers and yogurt containers and of all his crazy fixins, and put them in the freezer. And that and when he came back, if that stuff was not there, he would be really not very happy because he considered our house his house, But
Did you ride a motorcycle once into a stage?
One of our shows when we played the bamboo. Whenever we played the bamboo with Slim, we would do something different. Like one time, we borrowed Larry's brother,
Scott,
who's a doctor. No, this one's Paul.
Oh, Paul.
Yeah,
okay.
we're 4 brothers. So this one, Paul, had a motorcycle. So Larry came up with, hey, let's bring him in on a motorcycle. So Paul drove the motorcycle in the front door of the bamboo, right up to the stage. And it's amazing how quickly people get out of the way when a motorcycle's coming through the club, because it was like a partying of the sea. Everyone like this. Another time we started it with he had in his crazy career of shenanigans. He would not call them shenanigans, but used to spar with Joe Louis. So I still have the boxing gloves of Slim's, and so he would practice with Joe Louis, and we started the show off with a big punching bag and Slim out in the everlast, big red silky shorts. And he was very
really skinny.
He was very vain, like his
But he was skinny, right?
He looked pretty good for 70 something, 72. He made in these trunks and the boxing gloves on, and that's how the show started with him. Oh, and then of course the really famous time we made the cake on the break. Do you know about that one? Oh, that's the best one. That is the most fun one. So one day we're in the kitchen and Slim's, cooking away, making stuff, and we were playing the bamboo that night, and so Larry said, so Slim, what are we going to do tonight? What are we going to do tonight? And he said, let's bake a cake. And we said, that sounds like fun. Okay. So what we did, I went and got, a couple of those, not a couple, I think it was like 4 or 5 boxes of that prefab cake mix. And all you do is add water to those
Betty
things.
Crocker, Duncan Hines,
Exactly.
somebody like that.
Yes. And so what we did was we got this major, I've got photos of this major bowl, huge industrial bowl, because it's the bamboo for, cooking stuff. And so he was on the stage and we're playing a mambo. Boom, 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 boom. So he ordered me to fill up, rum bottles with water, vodka bottles with water, beer bottles with water. We had a few eggs. And he continued to sort of, dance and pour the vodka bottle, which we had all the measurements. I would put the right amount in that vodka bottle, poured it in the cake, whipping it up, in time, and then boom, egg, boom, da 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 da, whipping it. This is just before the break, the last tune. And so we make this big pile of batter, and then it goes into the kitchen, and we bake it, and then the next set comes out with him. He brings the cake out, and he's out in the audience dancing away, and he's handing all the cake slices to everybody. Hey, he just made so many people happy. I've got these great photos from that particular night of just the joy in people's faces looking at him as he's handing cake out, and he was there's a real dark side to Slim too, but there's a very
he also has children around the world. I think he might be like Wilt Chamberlain as far as jazz singers go.
His daughter was married to Marvin Gaye, and Slim actually performed on a lot of Marvin Gaye recordings back up, and I've become friends with his son Mark, who. There's a lot of stuff that's very not known about Slim, and we'll write about
most
that.
things.
Yeah.
Most things. Slim Gaillard and Leon Redbone are the two big mysteries.
He got very involved in some things. He was involved with the mob. He was involved with spying for the FBI on the behalf of the FBI. He ran a brothel. He was mixed up in a lot of drug stuff, even though he told me, I know he totally stayed away from drugs because he had a contact high once and found himself going down some highway in Los Angeles with all his clothes off in a car. I'm sure he did that, and it was not because he was high.
Right, he wouldn't have to.
No.
Let's go way back for a moment. I know that
man.
you studied piano when you were young with Royal Conservatory, and then you moved to soprano sax and flute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I did my examinations at the Royal Conservatory. I studied privately with a piano teacher named Harry Heap, who really whipped me into shape. But I had a very beautiful upbringing in that my family home, which is around St. Clair and Spadina, I was attached on the home, which was the identical home to our family house. There was 2 elderly ladies that lived in that, and one's name was Rosemary Hahn, and they were sisters, and the other woman's name was Martha Stainer. Martha had been married and been widowed, and her sister Rosemary had moved in with her. Now this family was quite an amazing family. They were of German heritage. the family arrived to Toronto because the older brother, Emmanuel Hahn, won a competition to design our coins here in Canada. So he was from Stuttgart, Germany, and he designed the elk on the quarter, the Algonquin Indians on the dollar, the blue nose on the dime. He did a number of the memorial sculptures on University Avenue, Sir Adam Beck.
Wow.
Many. So he was a fine artist. Everybody in the family was an artist. It happened that his younger sister, Rosemary Hahn, who lives next door to me, was my original piano teacher. As a little girl, my parents, they were. It's very hard for me to describe these people because they were these two ladies because they just left such a huge impression on me, like more than anybody really in my life. Because at that stage, as a child, my parents cut a little hole in the gate. I had my own little gate to go into their house, and in the summertime the windows would all be open. She was a concert pianist. I'm sorry, I meant that part. She had been a concert pianist.
No relation to Paul Hahn.
Yes.
Oh.
Paul Hahn is her nephew.
Oh,
Yes.
so
The
the
Hahn
Hahn of the Hahn family
Yes.
of the piano
These are
famous
them.
Hahn
Yes.
family. Oh my.
So his aunt was my piano teacher. And unofficially, I mean, it wasn't like, here's your money for your lessons. I was over there all the time. Like, if my family didn't see me in the house when everybody was there and they heard the piano playing over there, they knew that I was over there either under the piano. I'm talking like 2 and 3 years old.
Right.
I would go
Under the
near
piano listening,
and just
yeah.
sit there listen to her. So eventually I became a student of hers. And, I mean, she just informed me about not just music, about nature. I mean, she just, she had such a love of poetry and art and everything. They were just very remarkable people. So she was my first teacher, and then when I became a teenager, I was totally out of control. I went to 5 high schools. I was, experimented with everything. I was a wild child, pretty much. And when I was 16, I finally got really back to serious about music, and I went and auditioned for this teacher who just was living around the corner from our house, Harry Heap, and he was a wonderful teacher. And it was the first time that somebody ever really instilled some serious discipline on me. And I was with him for, I guess, about a good 5 years. And then I went and did my grade 10 piano, which was, for me, a big deal because I was a quitter. And I couldn't even finish brownies. Like, I quit brownies.
Oh, and grade 10 is extremely advanced for somebody young.
It was. I mean, grade 10 is like you've spent a lot of hours practicing to get all that repertoire together. There's just a lot of stuff you have to do. So that was done at the Royal Conservatory. And then from there, then the story gets kind of funny. I went at it with such a viciousness of practicing everything, I got a tendonitis, and I had to take a leave from the piano, and I went to San Francisco. So I'm about 18 years old, and 19, and went to San Francisco with my cousin, and then there I heard Mingus. I had gone to the Colonial to the matinees with either my dad or my brother, who were jazz fans, and I'd heard Mingus, but here I was out on my own, and it was a totally different thing, and I went night after night after night, and when I came back from that trip, so I was there for about 3 weeks, and 4 or 5 nights of hearing Mingus at Keystone Corners with Don Bullen in the group. When I came back from that trip, I had done a 360-degree change. I said, I want to be a jazz musician. But I didn't know, there was no jazz universities at that time. There was no jazz study programs. There was nothing like that. And it was like, how does a white girl from an upper middle class family become a jazz musician? And I didn't know, how to go about the training for something like that. Like, if you want to be a doctor, you know how to do that. There's certain things that you have to follow. So that was it was a bit tricky, but I found my way and found like-minded people at the little place on DuPont Street called the New School of Music, which was like an independent, tiny little school. Al Henderson was teaching there. Jane Fair was teaching there. And Jane Fair was a very, very important person in my development, because if there was anybody that was a role model, it was seeing her out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I met Larry, and that was pivotal, because when I met Larry, I inherited this huge record collection, which was fantastic, because he'd been working at Sam's for years and years, being a jazz buyer there, and he had a lot of knowledge, and it was like submersion, you know.
You guys are still together, and when did you meet? Would that be in your early 20s?
Yeah, we met when we were, I met when I had just turned 21.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Incredible, I know. We've had our ups and downs.
Yeah.
He'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
But that is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
So you moved on. You had Jane. You had some of these people kind of helping you find your way through the world of jazz.
You know, Don Poole and Dewey Redman. I used to, at Café des Copains, I would go and I would hang out, and that's really my school. I'm very different than a lot of people I know. For example, if Roland Hanna was playing there, I'd go and I'd hang out with them on the break, and then at that time people would come for like 3-4 days.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I would say, you might not be able to do that now. I would say, can I come see you at your hotel room tomorrow? I went up, Jaymz Moody, every time he came to Toronto, I'd say, can I come over for a lesson? Can I bring my tenor over? And he'd say, yeah. And I'd hang out the afternoon with Jaymz Moody. And I, write in my little manuscript book, he'd say, okay, try these exercises, okay, now all keys, do that. Now do it with this articulation. Slur it. Okay, now staccato. And that's how I developed. And then meeting these musicians firsthand, extracting the essence of what it meant to be a musician,
Is that what you now instill in these younger people? Because it looks now you're the mentor. I mean, you still have people you want to play with, but now you're the person finding young women from Havana and bringing them around the world.
I hope I can do that, because number one, Cuba is very cut off, as we know, and limited in terms of, what's happening in the world. I mean, they get some stuff, but they don't get the opportunities, of course, that the freedom that I have as a Canadian to travel, to be able to walk into situations. Travel is really the key, travel is freedom.
You are all over the U.S. coming up. I can't believe how many shows.
Marvelous.
This is all because of Grammy nominations and music festivals.
I think
and also hard work.
Well, I think the Grammy thing helps a little bit. But the biggest thing is that the more, what do you call it? I just lost the word. I had it up. The more on the scene you are, the more you're the more people are seeing. For example, I look at Monterey.
Yes.
They wouldn't be offended, hopefully, but I look at Monterey and Newport Jazz. These are like paid for showcases. So when you get a gig like that, when you get a concert like that, you're in all the presenters are at those festivals. And so we're getting exposed. That's the word.
Right.
Exposure.
Yeah.
If you get exposure, you get opportunities. If you don't get exposure, you don't get any opportunities to do nothing. You can practice all the time you want in your room, but if nobody sees you outside your practice studio.
Right. And those are two very famous festivals you played.
Very famous.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff happened after we played those festivals, and I hope they continue to. And there's still more. We just got a call. Looks like we'll be at the North Sea next July, and that's another very important festival. So it all comes down to opportunities. I mean, I say this all the time, and that's one of the reasons why started this group, was because the only way you get better is by being given a chance to get out there and play. And that's why Serena Williams, Venus Williams, that's why these players, no matter what you do, that's why they get so good, because they're getting the opportunities to go up against the top people and hone their skills and challenge themselves and get better and better. And that's what everybody needs. And with a lot of women, we don't get the opportunities. They're
Right, you
gobbled up.
saw that when we were
Especially in Cuba.
in Cuba. That was 5-6 years ago. I was there when
diming.
when we saw and went, these women should be famous. They should
Yeah.
get these opportunities.
Yeah. But it's because it's hard for everybody there, right? Like even the Harold Lopez Nusa, even those guys. I mean, they get most of the work now, but there was a time when those guys weren't getting their playing opportunities either. So is it very hard for these guys to turn around and say, "Hey, girly girl, I'd really rather see you up on the stage than me." It ain't
Right.
gonna happen.
No. Thank you for not having Larry wear a dress. I know your husband is a fine fine trumpet player, but he's not in Maqueque. He does do a lot of stuff behind the scenes, doesn't he?
Yes, and I mean, there's no way I could do this. There's absolutely no
Right,
way
without
I
a
could do this.
partner, there would
And
be
I
too
think
much to do.
Everybody knows that, like, just what's happened for me as a musician, that there's just no way that any of this would happen without him, because he has been the visionary. Together we work together on, focusing on trying to when we make up a project idea, okay, we can come up with these wild ideas, but then we got to pull it off. Now, how are we going to pull off this crazy idea that we think is so great? And we work together on it, and he works very, very hard on putting the nuts and bolts together of how to make something
Right,
happen.
the amount of funding you require to take a large band across any border, let alone Europe or...
People have no idea, because, like, for example, if we get to, like, North Carolina, Charlottesville, people are like, "Oh, where y'all from?" And I said, "Well, I'm from Toronto, Canada. They're all from Cuba." "Cuba? They're Cubans, but they're in Canada." I said, "No, these are Cubans that are still living in Cuba. We have to apply for visas. No, first we have to get the approval notice approved by the State Department. That's the first thing. And it's a whole year. You have to do that a year in advance. And then, when that's approved, then, you have your periods of touring. Let's say you're touring period 3 weeks. Like, for example, now September is coming up. We're leaving September 13th. The tour ends September 28th. We have a number of dates in that period that are empty. So people always went Friday, Saturday nights, and Sundays. And then what happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? So in the case of us, we're only allowed one entrance visa. So we once the approval notice is approved, then we set up our visa appointment. No more visa, no more embassy in Havana now. So they have to come to Toronto or go to Mexico. So better they come here, because they can live in our house, and then from there,
That's a whole nother story. How many people have lived from Slim Gaillard to you have basically a hotel that doesn't charge.
Paint job. Let's put it that way. But anyway, yeah. So then they get the visa appointment. Then we come back like in 10 days. Get the visas, go. But we cannot come back into Canada. We have to stay there for those days off till the whole thing is completed. Come back to Toronto. Sometimes they go back to Cuba. If it's a short time frame, we stay in the house again. We apply because the approval notice hasn't been approved, but we still have to buy new visas and get a visa appointment and all that for our next entrance for the times in October or the next times in November. In the case of right now, we don't have much work in October, so they're going back to Cuba. But they'll come again at the beginning of November. We have a few dates in Canada, and then we go back into the U.S. again. We're going to Argentina. We're going to the Dominican Republic. We're doing a lot of stuff, but still, a visa for Dominican Republic, visas for Argentina, all this stuff got to be done here in Toronto. So they come back again into the house. It's like this is a reoccurring nightmare.
But it's good that people know that it's not all rock stardom. It's not. There's so much work behind getting a band on the road.
And I think this is the thing that makes us unique and makes us, when we hit the stage as a group, none of this is taken for granted. We appreciate. It's very frustrating, but we know in our hearts when we hit the stage there has been a great deal of work that has had to be done to get us on that stage. It's not just been like, okay guys, let's all get in the car and go. We've all had to make sacrifices. Larry and I have to make sacrifices to our privacy. They have to make sacrifices. They're living in our house. They can't like just do whatever. Oh, pretty close to it. But anyway.
No, but also they have to leave someone behind in Cuba when they come here.
They're leaving their friends. They're leaving all their stuff that they like their stuff.
Yeah.
They've got my stuff all around them, but they like their stuff. It's tricky for them. There's a lot of sacrifice. So when we get to the stage, don't look over there. When you get to the stage, that we're really we're excited to be there because there's been a lot entailed in us getting from A to B.
How are things different now that you've signed to Linus True North? I assume like that's probably one of the only labels right now that's kicking ass and actually doing work.
You know what? It sounds corny, but to say it's like a family, but it really is. Like his team of people there.
Jeff Kulowick?
Yeah. His folks, Judy, Brad, all the people that are working in that office. I'm missing some names, but they're so hands-on. They're so enthusiastic. They're really great, and I appreciate Jeff. You know, these times are really tough. You know, you've got some people paying to be on labels, and Jeff is very behind us. You know, he's hired for our U.S. tour a publicist, and these kind of things. They're really necessary now as a touring band. You have to have that stuff. You got to have all those things in place because if you don't sell tickets, if you're going into a club and you don't do well, you're not back there again. It's just like that. I mean, the top clubs in New York, they don't even listen to your CDs anymore. What they do is they go to your Facebook page and they see how many friends you've got and how many views you've got on your videos, and then they might listen to your CD and make the decision if you're going to play the jazz standard or you're going to play the blue note or you're going to play Dizzy's.
Right. One strike, you're out, not three.
No. It's you're given one kick of the can. You don't do well, you're not back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what is coming up next? You're doing a whole bunch of touring.
Yeah. Yeah, the next year's the record comes out tomorrow. Tomorrow being tomorrow, Friday,
which will be a week ago, right? So exactly 1 week ago the record came out.
Okay, it comes out on the Friday. I guess. And so our new record's called On Firm Ground. I've been told a lot of people feel it's a bit of a departure from Odara, which is interesting. I understand that because we've had a good year and a half playing under our belt.
Yeah, I think this one feels the most like a band that's been traveling and are now coming back to do a selection of songs that they know really well. I loved all three albums.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good definition. I agree with that, and I think that's.
I'm trying to figure out why is this one the best of the three. I love them all.
I think because we're cohesive now as a group, and having Joanna in the group is sort of taking it to another level because she's more. You know, I love Cuban music, and I do. You know that. You
have a girl, Joanna Maqueque is from Winnipeg and sings every style of music you could possibly imagine.
But she's a very good improviser, and so with me, she's like right up there with me, duking it out on stuff, and I really love that playfulness of being able to do that with her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I have one last question, and that is about all of these awards. 5-time Juno winner, Order of Canada, Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, and the Premier Award of Excellence. Is there one of those when you were accepting an award that a moment you just can't forget? Something surreal or weird?
Well, the Order of Canada was certainly...
Who else was with you when you were picking up your award?
Paul
Yeah, he made a few bucks.
Paul Anka, Mayor... Oh, shoot. John. Oh, God. Oh, just give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
Our wonderful mayor. He was great. Bicycle guy. East End. Oh, I'm just doing a blank.
But when you say bicycle, I think Jack
He's
Layton,
always
but
on
it
a
couldn't be.
bicycle,
No.
but another guy who was always on his bike. It'll come to me in a second. That's terrible.
Not John Sewell.
John Sewell.
Yeah!
Thank you. There was, that was incredible because I was there with people that, the most heaviest scientists and people that had done really brilliant things. And
The space shuttle arm or something like that. Yeah, something
and
huge.
the guy who I sat, my dinner partner was the man who invented the de-icing machine for the airplanes all over North America. I wish I could. I'm so bad with the people that are in the music business, but but anyway, and of course my mother was there, and then when I saw my mom, I was just like, ah! That was very emotional for me to see her in the audience. So that was a very, very special thing. The first time we got nominated for a Grammy, that was a surprise, and we went to the Grammys. It was great, and I was so thrilled to be there. It was just great. And then the second time I got nominated for a Grammy, I was sure I was going to get it. That was the best. That was a year after, right? And so it was like, hey, I got nominated the first time. So, and I just thought that was a fluke. How'd that happen? But then the second time I was like, hey, this could really happen. So we had been at the U.S. consulate. The Canadian consulate in New York. And Pamela Wallen had put on a big party with all these people. Dinah Krall was there, and what's his name? What's her husband's name?
Elvis.
Elvis. Yeah, Elvis Costello was there, and it was like a super party. The Brydup brothers were all there, and everyone kept coming up to me saying, "Oh, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it." And I was like, "Please, you're totally jinxing this thing for me. Don't say that." Anyway, get to the Grammys for the second time, and I'm right up in pretty much in the second row. I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna get it.
I'm so close to the podium.
Really thinking, I think this might happen. And then, my name wasn't Krall, it was the Afro-Caribbean Jazz Project. I was like, what? What? Recall. But anyway, and then the last time we went for Maqueque, that was just fun, and we just had fun. And so.
Yeah, you didn't go down thinking that the Cubans are going to take the Grammys away.
No.
Yeah.
But the second time I was like, hey, it wasn't a fluke. Maybe I might just have something here.
Well, thank you for all you do.
Thank you, James.
You are a superstar.
But you for hanging in with all the ups and downs and the crazy shit that goes on, and you just you're resilient.
Love you.
Thank you.
Wow, Jane Bunnett. You gotta love that woman. She's amazing. Next Friday, I'm doing this again. And don't forget, you can always give a little something at patreon.com. Thank you for your support. I hope you come back next week. And meanwhile, get out there and enjoy some great clubs. And if you have seen this and it's not this week, this thing's online forever, just get out there and support live music wherever you are. Bye.